Hello everyone and welcome to another wonderful game, also from round 6 of this year's FIDE Grand Swiss on one of the top boards. This is board 3 and we have World Junior Champion Marc'Andria Maurizzi representing France and Anish Giri, the legend representing Netherlands, of course. Giri coming off of a win against Grigori Oparin, and Marc'Andria started off a bit slow, even though, yeah, it's slow against a very strong Grandmaster. He drew Bogdan Daniel Deak and Amin Tabatabai, and then racked up 3 victories against Vladislav Artemiev, against Maxim Vachier-Lagrave, and yesterday against none other than Vincent Keimer, dealing Vincent his first loss. So he's on an incredible run. Even going into this round, he has 3 wins and 2 draws, whereas Anish has 3 draws and 2 wins. So he has half a point extra. But yeah, it's a really wonderful game, and I thought it was funny that they played the Najdorf, and of course you guys know that Anish has a chessable course on the Najdorf, so I imagine it makes him very happy when he has a chance to present his knowledge and what he's offering. But also, you know, if everyone knows that he will play the Najdorf, then they can prepare something very special. And here Marc'Andria definitely did prepare something special. So let's see what this special something is. We have pawn to e4, pawn to c5, Anish goes for the Sicilian. We have knight f3, pawn to d6, and striking in the center, pawn to d4. We have captures, knight to f6, knight to c3, and pawn to a6. The knight of Sicilian is on the board, and as I usually say, any move here is a well-known line. And here Marc'Andria chooses knight to b3, which is already very rare. We have pawn to e6, and now even if someone plays this, they will follow it up with pawn to g4. It's just how everyone plays it. But here we have bishop to e3, and now there are only a handful of games in the database with some moves like pawn to b5 or bishop to e7. But here Anish also mixes it up. He plays knight to c6, and now pawn to g4. There are a couple of games pawn to f4 exists in only one game, but pawn to g4, and it is now as of move 8 that we have a completely new game. And as you can see, it is Anish who is down on the clock, already wasted almost 20 minutes, whereas Marc'Andria wasted only 2 minutes. So Anish got out prepared. We have pawn to b5, pawn to g5, challenging the knight. We have pawn to b4. Anish also takes some 8 minutes deciding on this pawn push and decides that it is perfectly fine. We have knight to a4 and the knight to d7. And here you would expect queen d2. Queen d2 in castles, it's such a normal looking move because you have the queen on d2, bishop on e3, and it just looks very familiar and makes sense. Also, you can castle queen side, you can play king b1, and then you push h4, f4, you know, h5, g5, and so on, g6, and so on. But here we have queen to e2, and this move, I have no idea why it was played. Later on, the answer reveals itself, but not really. It will reveal itself to us, but not to the person playing the game, which sounds odd, but it's, I mean, why else would you play queen to e2? And it sounds weird, but you'll see what I mean by this. So Anish continues, bishop to e7, we have castles queenside, and bishop to b7. Okay, makes sense. There's a rook on h1, and also where else would you develop this bishop? We have pawn to f4, and knight to a7. Now opening up the light square bishop, and Marc'Andria counters with bishop to g2. But this would be a beautiful moment to capitalize on actually putting your queen on e2 and play queen to c4. And the reason for that is that you're defending the e4 pawn, but also you're making it very, very difficult for Anish to defend that b4 pawn. There's just no way to do it. You're just going to capture on b4, and that's it. Perhaps it was Anish's plan all along to maybe castle, give up the pawn, and just be down a pawn and to go for the attack. That's, you know, also seems like a plan. But if you try to defend the pawn, it's possible, but then white just plays whatever white wants, and there's no way that you can develop anything here. And also white has black has very firm control over that b6 square. So if you try something like rook to c8, you can just play king to b1, and if pawn to a5, finally defending that pawn, you have the b5 square. And now you really have control over that b6, and you're just going to have a very, very strong game. But okay, after knight a7, Marc'Andria went for bishop to g2, and now Anish goes for bishop to c6. Now, Queen c4 is no longer an option. There's a knight hanging on a4. We have queen to f2, now offering to trade the a4 knight for the a7 knight. And Anish says that is very favorable for me. We have captures. Bishop captures on b3, a captures on b3, and now queen to c7, threatening the bishop. And the question is whether you bring it back to d4 or to e3. Marc'Andria brings it back to e3, and now Anish starts pushing. Pawn to a5. And you also want to push on the king side, but Anish's king is actually still in the center of the board, so you have to figure out how to reach it. Probably with a move like pawn to f5. What you would have to do here is acknowledge that Anish's attack is also very strong and play rook to d4. Which means that if a4 is played, you can always capture on b4. Or even a4, you can go after the queen, rook to c4, and then depending where the black queen goes, let's say rook b7, then you attack the b4 pawn, and then you capture it. And even if captures, you can simply capture. For example, castle's kingside, black is preparing to bring the other rook into the game. You can just play queen captures on b4 and trade queens. If black declines this, you can just, offer again and again and again. And this is... not just playable for white. There's only one way for black to hold this, otherwise white will be better. You have to go queen to b7 and then go for the repetition. Anything else and white is better. But after pawn to a5, Marc'Andria decided, as he was already on such a legendary streak, I mean, his last three opponents being Artemiev, MVL, and Vincent Keimer, beating all three of them, why wouldn't he go for pawn to f5? The problem with pawn to f5 is that it loses the game if played, to perfection, which Anish is definitely capable of, and you probably have an idea what Anish played here. If you want to pause the video, I can never stop you. You can always do that. But yeah, here Anish played pawn to a4, and he's just faster. There's not a lot you can do here. You either capture on a4 or you capture on e6, which is kind of why you played pawn to f5, or you decide that, okay, that was a bad plan, and you start running with your king. Marc'Andria does all three. First, he captures on e6. We have f captures. Then he captures on a4. Rook captures, and now not yet king to d2. It would be too soon with so many black pieces here. First, he goes bishop to h3. And okay, you're attacking the e6 pawn, but Anish's attack is just much too quick. And pretty much it doesn't matter what you play because your position is just bad here. Once he missed that rook to d4 move, it was all downhill from there. So here Anish goes b3. Okay, pawn to c3. You obviously cannot open the c file, nor do you want to. We have knight to c5. You're never in a rush to capture on e4, but you do want to at some point, preferably with the knight. When knight captures on e4, the d2 square will be covered. This pawn covers the c2 square, which means that a move like rook a1 will be checkmate, and king b1 doesn't really do all that much because you can just put a queen on a7 or castle. Not at the moment, but for example, if the queen moves, you can castle and then bring the other rook to a8, and this is just very, very bad for Marc'Andria. He plays queen to e2. If you try to eliminate the knight, because I've already said the knight is extremely important here, you can do it, but even if you decided to trade queens, you cannot do it. For example, queen captures, h captures, the g5 pawn is hanging, and after king b1, king e7, and all of a sudden now the bishop is controlling the dark squares, so the other rook comes to a8, and again rook to a1 will be checkmate. So having queens off the board doesn't really help you here. So after knight c5, we have queen to e2 by Marc'Andria, again going for that queen to e2 move that sort of got him into all this mess. And Anish could capture on e4, but if he did it right away, then he would blunder the game, because queen b5 check, and now you either lose the rook or you have to block with the queen, and then queen captures on b3, and without this pawn on b3, white is the one who's going to be pushing. So after queen to e2, we have queen to c6. Of course, Anish spots this queen b5 idea, and now there is nothing more. You can give one check, but it doesn't really do anything. At some point, just knight captures and rook to a1, and that's it. So Marc'Andria goes for the third part of the plan, and that is to run away with the king. We have castles kingside by Anish, rook h to f1, and a nice rook captures on f1. We have queen captures on f1, and now queen captures on e4, and he was in this position on move 27 that Marc'Andria Maurizzi resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. So a beautiful victory by Anish Giri against the reigning world champion. And the reason you resign is because there's no move you can play. Even a move like, let's say, bishop g2 looks very nice, queen c2 check, and after king e1, rook a1, and that's it. You have to resign here. Black will just capture, or if you capture, then knight to d3 check, and the king has no squares. You have to give up the queen. Queen captures, and okay, you have a light square bishop and the rook for a queen, but your king is so bad that you're gonna get checkmated at some point. The bishop here is hanging. You can just go king f7, and no threats from white. This is too easy to play. As I like to say, you know what I like to say. So yeah, after queen captures on e4, Marc'Andria resigned, and a wonderful victory by Anish Giri, like I said, against the reigning world champion, and deleting his winning streak and also his unbeaten streak. So yeah, very sad for Marc'Andria, but great stuff for Anish Giri. And these are the standings. Now all of the games have finished, and I will show you guys the standings. So let me just enlarge it a little bit. All right, so as follows, as tomorrow is a rest day, so this is, very important. Tomorrow, use that hashtag suggestion. I will cover some of the games that I've missed. Parham Maksudlu in the lead, 5 points, no one sharing the throne with him. Very, very close to winning that spot to the candidates tournament. If he can keep it up for 3 more rounds, we will have Parham Maksudlu in the candidates. Then we have 5 people with 4.5 points: Abhimanyu Mishra, Arjun Nergaisi, Matthias Blubaum, Anish Giri, and Nihal Sarin. And then a lot of people with 4 points: Jaus Khan Erdomus, Marc'Andria Maurizzi, Pranav, Maxim Rothstein, Alireza Firuj, Jashan Sargisyan, Nodirbek Abdusatorov, Amin Tabatabai, Vincent Keimer, Shahriar Mamedjarov, Nicolas Teodoru, after that beautiful victory that I've shown against the world champion Gukesh today. Hans Niemann also with a nice victory. We're going to probably show that game as well on 4 points. Vidit Gujarati, Jordan Fanforest, Nodirbek Yakuboev, and then with 3.5 points, Ivan Cheparinov, Abhimanyu Puranik, Leon Luke Mendonça, Alexei Shirov, Shimon Gumularz, Mateusz Bartel, Andy Woodward, Cristobal Henriquez, and Nikita Vityugov. And I'm sure you guys are asking, but where is Prague? Where is Levon? Well, Prague is this is the top 30. Prague is actually 31st, Levon 32nd. So it's not an easy tournament, and even for the youngsters. I mean, Prague is a youngster. So yeah, it's everyone is playing well, and I think next year in the in tournaments we're gonna have also people we've never heard of, playing such not just nice games. Anyone can win a miniature. Your opponent runs into preparation, or he blunders something, and all of a sudden you have a miniature. But no, like, play a real fighting game, 60 moves of real fighting chess, from an 11-year-old. I'm pretty sure we're not far off from seeing that. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Like I said, use that hashtag suggestion, and I will cover your games if they appeal to me. I would like to thank Christian Fisher, Carmen Polifronio, Austin Wheeler, Ali Urukoglu, and Joseph McArdle for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. Thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.